Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for our second webinar in our HY4RES webinar series. We're just opening the room so people will be joining over the next few minutes, but we're just going to get started. My name is John Gallagher, and I'm an academic, an associate professor in the School of Engineering in Trinity College, and I am the coordinator of the HY4RES project, and I'm the facilitator of the webinar this morning. Throughout this morning, you're going to hear from a number of speakers from the project, sharing their knowledge and experiences of our work in hybrid renewable energy systems. And I hope you enjoy it. Just as I said, this is the second in our series. So we've had our previous session 2 weeks ago, and we have another one coming up in 2 weeks, and you're welcome to join that on turning research into practice. But today it's all about supporting decision making. And I suppose just before we begin and give you some details of the process of the next hour to an hour and a half, we're recording this session, so you can watch it on replay or share it with others after today, and we'll be sharing those details after the session closes in the coming days. We ask you, I suppose, to keep your microphones and cameras turned off during the speaker sessions, and you will be invited to ask questions at the Q&A session later. And following that as well, we will have individual Q&As or questions for each speaker. So if you decide you want to ask a question from one of our speakers as they're giving their talk, please find the Q&A function. It's in your menu bar, and place your question there, and we'll come to you to answer that question from our speakers. So we'll have individual 1 or 2 questions after each speaker, and each speaker will be about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we will dedicate about 20 minutes towards the end to a combined Q&A in which we will address any further questions you might have. So we also have the chat function for discussions. You're more than welcome to use that. And also please be aware that if you need transcriptions or subtitles, the instructions are here on the menu for you to turn those on. So before we get into the presentations, we'd just like to play a short video. It's about 3 minutes, just to give you an overview of the project and to give you an idea of HY4RES before we get into our speakers' discussions. So please enjoy, and we'll come back to our speakers then after this.
Hello, bonjour, hola, bom dia. We're working on a European project called HY4RES. We want more of the electricity we use to come from renewable sources. So, we've developed hybrid systems that combine renewable energies to compensate variability and provide innovative storage solutions. This makes the production of renewable electricity more stable, sustainable, and less costly. We are testing our systems at 4 pilot sites, working with local partners in different environments to implement small-scale solutions that can be replicated elsewhere. In Spain, we are working with farmers in Andalusia to help reduce dependence on fossil fuels for irrigation. At the port of Avilés, we use tidal power to harness the energy of the sea, and we're testing a mobile hub that can store and regulate the use of energy. In Ireland, our aquaculture site in County Donegal uses surplus electricity generated by wind turbines to dry wood from local forests. In Portugal, we are rehabilitating disused installations in rural areas to produce renewable energy, and our hybrid system will power a small energy community. We are researchers, engineers, business leaders, farmers, and local authorities, and have worked together at European level since 2023. HY4RES project is co-funded by the Interreg Atlantic Area Program of the European Union.
So for those of you not familiar with the project, I hope that gives you a little insight to HY4RES. So as we move forward now, Just to give you an overview, this is our 4 presenters: Manuel Zambrano, Rito Apache Quinones, Mariana Bernabe, and Theo Brinstein Julien. Our 4 speakers over the next hour will give you different insights into the role of decision making in the HY4RES project. And so the best thing we can do is hand over to our first speaker, and I'm going to welcome Manuel to take control of the slides and turn his camera on. While he's doing that, I'm just going to introduce Manuel. He has an agricultural engineering background from the University of Seville, specializing in the water sector, and also holds expertise in the field of irrigation design, management, and innovation through programs run by the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. He's an assistant engineer to the management of irrigation communities and has been involved in this area for a number of years. So he works closely with farming sector, and I suppose it's a very important part of working in the agricultural sector to work with those on the ground and supporting decision making. So Manuel, I'd like to invite you to take control. Look forward to your presentation, and we'll have time for questions after and later in the final Q&A session.
Good morning. Thank you very much, John. And good morning. My name is Manuel Lemos. I am agronomist engineer. My role within the irrigation community is that of assistant engineer to the management. Our irrigation community is located in the province of Seville in Spain, the irrigated area of the lower Guadalquivir Valley, lies between our canal and the left bank of the river Guadalquivir. Our irrigation community is over a century old, and science is accepting it has relied on gravity irrigation via a main canal and secondary channels. In September 2009, the new facilities were brought into operation following a complete modernization project involving an investment of 127 million euros. The irrigable area covers 18,845 hectares, spread across 9 irrigation sectors. There are 3,074 irrigated plots, and by 2,962 hydrants. We have over 500 kilometers of irrigation pipes and 9 pumping stations, with a water storage capacity of 4 million meter cubics across 9 irrigation reservoirs. This pressurized irrigation project has led to increase in drip irrigators, which now cover 70% of the total area, resulting in water savings of over 50%. 58% crop are permanent, has notable citrus, fruit tree, and olive groves. The remaining are herbaceous crops, the most important of which are potatoes, cotton, and wheat. Our infrastructure, such as the component of our pumping station or hydrant, is controlled automatically and can be managed via our computer and smartphone. As we can see from the canal, we can raise the water level using the sluice gates. Before the reservoir is filled, we have various screens in place to remove larger debris. We have 14 centrifugal pumps for filling the reservoirs, with power rating ranging from 45 to 58 kilowatts and flow rates between 700 and 1,000 liters per second. To pump water into the pipework network, the pumps draw water from the reservoir via a floating intake. This water is filtered through a bell filter. The 37 horizontal centrifugal pumps have a power output of between 132 and 355 kilowatts, with flow rates of 200 and 600 liters per second at a pressure of 4.5 bar. Also, the working pressure is 3 bar due to the gentle gradient of our irrigation area. All pumps are fitted with variable speed drivers to improve energy efficiency. The irrigation community plant or solar plant, is situated on a 6 hectares plot of land belonging to the irrigation community. It comprises 70,880 solar panels with a capacity of 6 megawatts and an annual output of 11 megawatt hours. The solar power plant was connected to its own electrical substation in September 2019, enabling the energy generated to be distributed to the irrigation sectors via the irrigation community owned 25 kilovolts power line, which is over 5 kilometers long. The benefits or solar plant pressure 24 hours a day, financial saving by no longer having to purchase some of the energy, 5,500 tons of carbon dioxide have been prevented from being emitted into the atmosphere, energy self-sufficient. The first Spanish irrigation community to be accredited with the ECO 20 seal for a self-consumption rate of between 50 and 70% of renewable energy, committed to environmental, social, and energy sustainability. As we can see the graph, the energy market is characterized by restriction on solar power energy during the day, but high energy cost at night. We are therefore currently in the planning stage of a solar energy storage project. This graph shows how self-consumption of solar energy is essential for our irrigation community, particularly when water allocation are normal. HY4RES country state Las Catalinas. This project was carried out on a farm within our irrigation community, selected on the basis of the water flow supply and the excess pressure required to fill a 13,000 meter cubic reservoir, as well as the energy consumption at its pumping station, which is the reservoir it's being filled. The irrigation area covers around 2,000 hectares, and they grow potato, chickpeas, wheat, carrot, and onions. The EBIT system comprises a micro-hydroelectric turbine with a 9.2 kilowatt PAT turbine operation at 3.7 bar and 30 liters per second, and a 24.4 kilowatt solar plant with 40 solar panels. It also features an inverter and a control panel with automation capability, capable of collecting for both real-time and historical data from the system. The benefit of photovoltaic system utilize excess pressure, energy savings, emission factor, 0.24 kilogram carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt hours, and energy savings for 41,763 kilowatt hours, and greenhouse gas reduction 10,065 kilogram carbon dioxide equivalent. And finally, conclusion. The Spanish energy market faced their main challenge, the saturation and obsolescence of the electricity grids, the historical isolation of the Iberian Peninsula from the rest of Europe, and homes with zero price due to the unsteps of renewable energy. The biggest cost in irrigated agriculture is energy, which is why we need to promote renewable energy projects such as those we are presenting today. Renewable energy projects must be accompanied by energy storage to make them more self-sufficient. These projects minimize greenhouse gas emission by replacing conventional energy sources with renewable ones. We at the irrigation community are proud that this project of HY4RES is already yield results on a front within our irrigation area, and we delight to showcase it our members so that they too can adopt this new technology. To finish off, here's a corporate video about our irrigation community.
Amamos la naturaleza, amamos la agricultura, amamos el riego, amamos lo que hacemos, amamos el campo y nuestros pueblos y todas sus costumbres que son las nuestras. Somos apasionados, curiosos, inquietos, tradicionales e innovadores al mismo tiempo. Honramos nuestro pasado como un precioso legado del que podemos aprender para inspirarnos y hacerlo mejor cada día. Pero vivimos firmemente anclados en el presente y comprometidos con el futuro, abiertos a todas las oportunidades de mejora y transformación, atentos a las necesidades de nuestros regantes y también a la sensibilidad y demandas sociales. Conscientes de que la mejor forma de admirar a quienes nos precedieron es imitándolos, siendo exploradores como ellos. Nos entusiasma la colaboración con otras comunidades y organizaciones de regantes, pero también con la administración pública y con la sociedad civil. Somos ambiciosos porque queremos lo mejor para la agricultura de riego andaluza, y para el medio rural que vive de él, y para el medio ambiente, y para las familias que llenan sus neveras con nuestras frutas, verduras y cereales, y cómo no, para la salud de todos, tan ligada a una buena alimentación. Somos regantes y nos sentimos muy orgullosos de serlo. Somos el Valle Inferior.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel, and just a lovely video to finish your talk. I just want to remind everybody before that we have time for 1 or 2 questions between each panelist. So I haven't seen anything come in yet, but please, we'll have our group questions and answers later. But if you have any pressing questions during any of the presentations, please don't hesitate to ask. Manuel, I haven't, we don't have any questions from the audience, but I just want to ask you one question myself. And it's to do, because the theme of this session is about decision making. Your video showed that you're involved in very large renewable energy initiatives, like your 6 megawatt solar. But the HY4RES project is a much smaller, modest scale. So what motivated you as a partner, Val Inferior, to host this pilot site? Why did you decide to be part of this project? What was part of your decision making to be part of this project?
Good question. In our irrigation community, we are always striving to improve the energy efficiency of our infrastructure and that our members.
Okay, so really you're a partner always looking for a new opportunity to become more sustainable, more efficient, and the large scale solutions are not the only solutions. Would I be correct in saying that? So thank you very much, Manuel. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And I think later we'll talk about maybe the details of the pilot a little bit more. But now I'm going to hand over to our second speaker if they want to
Okay.
take control of the slides, and we'll move on to the next slide. And I'm going to introduce Rita, if you're there.
Yeah, wait, I don't know, my camera
Yes.
doesn't seem to be picking me, has the background, but
Yes, you're not there. We can always turn off the background. There you are. Perfect. So welcome, Rita. I'll let you take control while I introduce you. Rita is an energy engineer specializing in renewable energy systems and sustainable technologies. Her background is in industrial engineering from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, and then she was also undertaking a renewable energy master's degree between IST in Portugal and KDH in Stockholm. She's now working with one of our partners, Easy Hydro, over the last 2 years and involved in the HY4RES project in, I suppose, scaling and implementing such solutions that Val Inferior have put in and working on innovation projects like this. So I'll let you take control, Rita, if you want. Move on to the next slide. And like I'm saying to the audience, if you have any questions from any of the speakers, please don't be shy. The Q&A button is there and the chat, and we'll ask questions of Rita at the end of this. Over to you, Rita, and I look forward to your presentation.
Hi everyone, and thank you, John, for the introduction. So I'll be presenting the solution developed within the HY4RES project regarding forecasting renewable energy generation. In particular, I will explain how weather forecasting and energy production models have been combined to estimate future electricity production from renewable sources. So, as we all know, renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, or hydro are highly dependent on weather conditions. So the energy production varies throughout the day and from one day to another, which makes energy management more challenging. So this is why an accurate forecasting is so important. So if we can predict how much energy will be generated in advance, it becomes much easier to plan and manage energy systems efficiently. To address this challenge, the HY4RES project developed a forecasting framework consisting of these three main components. So first, a weather forecasting application was developed to provide a meteorological data needed for the predictions. Secondly, renewable energy prediction models were created for both photovoltaic and wind power systems using data from existing installations and their performance under different weather conditions. And then finally, these two components were combined, and by using forecasted weather conditions as inputs for the energy prediction models, the system can estimate renewable energy generation up to 15 days in advance. So I could start sharing or talking a bit about the weather forecasting tool. So the team developed a 15-day weather forecasting application that provides hourly forecast for 29 different weather variables based on the coordinates of the selected location that want to be studied. So in the screen right now, you can see a screenshot of that app, and we can see on the right-hand side around here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but in here, you can see the map of the selected location to be studied, and the graphs show some of these weather variables. For example, we can see the solar radiation, the wind speed, the daily precipitation, and the temperature and maximum and minimum temperatures. So these weather variables provide the foundation for the renewable energy forecasting models that I will describe next. So let's take a look at the photovoltaic generation model. So the electricity produced by PV systems mainly depends on two factors: the solar irradiance reaching the surface of a panel, which is known as plane of array irradiance, POA, and it's also dependent on the temperature of the solar cells. So regarding the plane of array irradiance, this represents the total solar energy received by the panel. So it combines direct sunlight, diffuse radiation from the sky, and the reflected radiation from the surrounding surfaces. So in order to estimate the POA value, the model considers several factors, which includes the orientation of the panel, the solar radiation, the shading effects, the cloud coverage, and so on. So the second important factor, as I was saying, is the cell temperature. So solar panels and their performance is rated under standard conditions, corresponding to the cell temperature being at 25 degrees Celsius. So as the cell temperature changes, let's say it's hotter and the temperature of the cell is higher, or it's lower, the panel efficiency is also affected by that. So this directly has an effect on the electrical output. And these are the two components that we need to take into account in order to know exactly what the energy generation by the PV panel could be done. So since the weather conditions have such influences on both of these irradiance and the temperature, accurately estimating these variables is essential for a reliable power prediction. This is why a reliable weather forecasting tool is so important. So in this next slide, it's summarizing how the PV forecasting model works. So first, the model retrieves the required weather variables from the weather forecasting application, and it calculates the plane of array irradiance using a geometrical model and estimates the cell temperature using an AI-based model. When we have these two variables, then they are used as input in a second AI model, which predicts the hourly PV electricity generation for the next 15 days. So here we can see, again, a screenshot of the PV forecasting application. So as before, we can see a map of the selected location that is being studied. And the application in this case displays both the predicted daily energy generation, expressed in megawatt hours over here, and an hourly generation profile in kilowatts. So later in the presentation, at the end of it, I will show briefly how this app can be used in practice and how it actually works. So the application can perform these calculations for both fixed PV and for single access tracking systems. But again, I'll show that a little bit later again. So similarly for the PV, a similar approach was followed for the wind power forecasting. So in this case, wind speed is the main factor that determines the energy produced by a wind turbine. And the forecasting model uses a polynomial-based approach to estimate the power generation from the forecasted wind condition. So again, from the weather forecasting app, we get the wind speed. It's introduced in this polynomial-based model. And from this, we obtain the 15-day ahead hourly energy generation forecast for the wind power. And again, here we can see a screenshot of the power forecasted application. So the user, as before, simply enters the coordinates of the installation, and the application generates hourly forecast of both wind speed and expected electricity production. As per the PV tool, the objective is to provide an accessible way to estimate future renewable energy generation based on weather forecasts. It's worth noticing, it's even written in here. I don't know if the words are too small or it can be written properly, but the current implementation or the current study was developed using data from a 5 kilowatt wind turbine. So the accuracy, or to be able to apply it in other turbine sizes or turbine models, it's not ideal, but that's the reason why, as a plan, future developments is to extend and validate the model for larger turbines or additional turbine types. So finally, I would like to briefly show how the PV forecasting tool works. So this is a recording. I might have to stop and play press again since my speech might not be timed perfectly with the recording. But so as you can see here, this is a beta version of the application. So that's why the appearance is different from the screenshots that I shown before, but the functionality is the same. So the idea or the development of this particular beta version is that it will be eventually available on the HY4RES project website for anyone to be able to use it. So here we can see on the left-hand side that we can enter is where we can enter the different characteristics of the installation, and in the right-hand side we'll get the results. So in this example, we can define a 6 megawatt peak photovoltaic plant. We can enter here also the latitude and longitude of the location, and later on the altitude of the location. Also here, as it's showing how we can choose the type of PV structure. So in this case, I'm choosing fixed installation, but we could use a single axial tracking. And as we launch the simulation, the application calculates the expected electricity generation for the next 15 days. Sorry about that. Maybe I can, yeah. Yeah, the data, fantastic. And then, yeah, so as we launch, we can get as I was saying, the energy generation for the 15 next days. In the green, in the top in green, we can see the total predicted energy production over that period of time. And below, we can see the hourly generation profile. Here, we can see that we can also download the CSV file for further analysis if that's what we want. And moving the cursor on top of the graph, we can check the production in the different hours. So we were saying that the maximum production happens as expected during the midday, and the low and non-production during nighttime. And we can also see the daily energy generation. And again, the location selected on the map, and the complete data set, as I was saying, can be downloaded as a CSV file for further analysis. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Frida. I don't see any questions have come in, so you might get off gently for the moment until we have our group Q&A discussion. I suppose with respect to this tool, obviously it can be useful for solar and wind, as you've highlighted. How has there been uptake by both communities, or has one community preferred it over another, or is there more hybrid projects that outside HY4RES that are engaging with it too? I'm just curious about the uptake and interest in this application.
I'd say I think there has been an interest. I have to say that I think for existing installations, it can be good in order to understand how the production will be, and then helps manage how to use that energy generated. I think it has also potential to be used for further for new projects to understand what would work best in a potential locations. And I think the interest on it, yeah, I'd say it was received gladly, because always the more data you have, the more informed decisions you can make, and that is always something that anyone with an energy system is always looking for, I say.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose where my reflection in your discussion was that if you have an existing renewable energy project, you're always trying to, optimize, like Manuel was talking about, always looking for new opportunities. Well, if you're developing a new renewable energy, maybe your priority is just getting it operational. But this is really added value that should be looked at that point too. But whether everyone is thinking about optimization to the in this way, using these sorts of resources. I think it's important. So great. Let's see what the our group Q&A and discussion evolves this discussion. So thank you very much, Rita. And I'm going to invite our next speaker, Mariana, to come. So Mariana is a civil engineer from the University of Cordoba and holds a master's degree in civil engineering from Seville. She's currently one of the PhD researchers involved in the HY4RES project, focusing or at the University of Cordoba, and her research focused on the application of this word, artificial intelligence, AI, for the optimization of renewable energy in hydraulic systems. So she's funded through a fellowship from the Spanish Ministry of Education, some of this work as well, but she's been involved in the HY4RES project from the beginning, contributing to some of the development of data analytics and the AI models for energy demand forecasting. So Mariana, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I look forward to your talk, and I will hand over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, John, for the presentation, the opportunity to be here representing the partners of the University of Cordoba. Today, I will talk about the architecture behind the transformer-based forecasting model. We will see how this forecasting model is applied to different end users. And finally, we will present the previous management tool for the energy production and energy demand forecasting model that has been developed with the HY4RES project. To develop this tool, we need forecasting models that can predict not only energy production, but also energy demand. In the HY4RES project, we will study energy demand in 4 very different sectors, where energy demand was highly variable and depend on several factors. These sectors are aquaculture in Ireland, agriculture and ports in Spain, and energy community in Portugal. Here, we can see how energy demand varies among the end users and across different years. For example, if we consider the energy demand in irrigation district, we can assume that it's directly related to water use by farmers in pressure irrigation networks. These consumes changing according to water availability, and in demand-based system according to the individual decision of each farmers. These decisions may depend on many factors that are not always easy to identify. A similar situation can be observed when analyzing the energy demand on large facilities such as a port, where demand is related to many operational and logistical factors or electricity supply service. And the same applies to aquaculture and a small energy community. In similar, energy demand is complex and therefore requires advanced models, forecasting models that can forecast in futures behaviors. Here, I would like to present a flow diagram of the energy management system. We will explain and break down in different blocks step by step in this presentation. It's important to remember that this system must be adapted to specific needs of each end user. And before discussing the training of this complex model, we need to focus on what is probably the most important part of the system's architecture. The data. In the data used to training the model and perform forecasting must cover long periods of times, including different season and operation conditions. The data must also be of high quality with no significant gap and representative of the end user energy demand. For example, is there the relationship between rainfall and energy demand in agriculture in the irrigation district? Or what about in a port area or in an agricultural company? Does this relationship change if we are in Spain or Ireland? There are some of the questions that must be studied before using the data to train in a forecasting model. In the case of renewable energy production, as Rita said, forecasting may depend on weather condition and the operational of devices. When forecasting energy demand in specific sectors, we depend on many more variables, often without direct control over them. To address this challenge, we use techniques that combine fuzzy logic and correlation matrix. matrix analyzing the relationship between energy consumption and categorical, binary, and continuous variables requires different statistical methods to properly evaluate their influence on energy demand. Once the input the variables are validated and selected, we can process to build and train the forecasting model. Today, there are many different models and neural networks available in machine learning, especially in deep learning, with different levels of complexity. Before choosing a forecasting technique, it's important to understand the problem we can solve, its complexities and its characteristics. And the choice of the model depends on the specific problem being addressed. In recent years, transformer neural networks have become very popular. They were originally developed for natural language processing tasks and later show excellent performance in generative AI applications, including large language models such as ChatGPT. However, research soon discovered that the transformer architecture is not limited to language application. Both natural language and time series data can be represented as ordered sequence of elements. Because of this similarity, transformers models were successfully adapted to time series problems, including energy demand forecasting. The input and output were processed through a transformer decoder systems. In general, the encoder processes the input data while the decoder uses this information to generate future energy demand forecasts. Both parts can contain multiple layers, increasing the learning and representation capabilities of the model. The main feature of transformer models is the attention mechanism, which is implemented through attention heads. Unlike recurrence model, which may have difficulties capturing very long-term dependence in long sequence, transformer can model this relationship more efficiently. The attention mechanisms allow each point of the sequence to interact with all other points. As a result, the model can learn relationship between variables and the time series and assign different levels of attention to them during forecasting. Our results are very good. The model training, the data were divided into data set, 85% to training and 15% for validation. This is the result during the validation phase. We can see that despite different in data quality, input variable availability, and end-user characteristics, the model achieved coefficient of determination values above 97% in all cases. This indicates that the model can explain most of the variability in energy demand. The best result was obtained for the irrigation district in Spain, while the aquaculture company in Ireland achieved the lowest value although it's still very, very hard. To conclude, we will now focus on the final part of the flow diagram and on the main outcome of the work packet dedicated to the intelligent management software within the HY4RES project. We are currently working on the integration of the forecasting models in a management tool. For this tool to work properly, we need not only trained model, but also continuous flow of data. If you want to make real-time forecasts, this data source must be connected through APIs that allow automatic updates. For solar energy generator, this is relatively easy because many AI API already provide real-time weather data. However, HY4RES and the user don't yet have all the required input data in the format that can be automatically integrated into the energy demand forecasting model. We are currently working on enable this integration, and as an alternative, we are developing a tool for the beneficiary irrigation district in Spain. Although it's not yet available in real time, its goal is to include the forecasting models developed in the project and provide useful recommendation for energy management. One of its function is energy performance monitoring, help users better understand their energy consumption patterns. In addition, together with our partners from Trinity College Dublin, we are studying the inclusion of environmental and economic indicators to support the making decision. These indicators will consider common life cycle impact aspects, such as climate change, energy and material resources, and water use. The main to ensure the energy decision also make environmental and social impact into account. Theo, our next speaker, will be able to explain this topic much better than I can during the next presentation. So this is all. I hope not taking too much time, and I am available for any question or comments. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Your presentation really started getting into the complexity that exists in some decision making. I think from Rita's presentation, talking about just, climate and temperature, your discussion has expanded our perspective that we need lots of other types of data perhaps too. But your results show that you can get very good fits in prediction. I just want to maybe just ask about a little bit more of the data. Like, what types of data are most critical in your work to achieve reliable forecasts?
Okay, thank you, John. As we mentioned before, the type of data selected for forecasting problem depend on specific problem being solved and should be chosen after careful data analysis. In the case of energy demand forecasting, the most important information is usually the historical energy demand from the previous hours, because energy consumption often follow patterns and trends over time. However, if there is a change in the trends or conditions such as the weather, climate change can become more important and have a strong influence on the energy demand. The forecast model can identify which variables are the most relevant in each moment. This is the reason why transformer model were very effective for time series problems.
Okay, so yes, as Rita kind of earlier discussed, maybe a simple solution for one stakeholder, but I think you have been working with different stakeholders who have different needs, and therefore your decision making and using data for decision making is more complex.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Everybody must be holding to the Q&A discussion, Mariana. So thank you, and we'll have more questions then. But maybe we'll move on to our final speaker, Theo, and decision making, maybe from a sustainability perspective, perhaps Theo. And while Theo is just taking control, I'll introduce him. Theo is, I suppose, says to describe himself is an energy engineer by education, but an impact economist by practice. So yes, a foundation of engineering, but a focus now in economy. And Theo is working for the last 2 to 3 years with our partner Vertigo Labs, and has developed and led comprehensive socioeconomic and environmental impact assessments for a range of clients and companies and different public interest groups and local authorities. In this project, Theo leads the work package on holistic impact assessment, myself working with him and his colleagues in Vertigo Labs, evaluating the pilot sites and analysing both direct and indirect socioeconomic, social and environmental effects. So Theo, thank you very much for joining this morning. Look forward to your discussion and look forward to your perspective on what your work does to contribute to decision making.
Thank you very much, John, and good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today and to present our work at Vertigo Lab. My name is Theo Engineer. I'm a consultant researcher at Vertigo Lab, as said John, and we are located in Bordeaux in France, and we are a consulting company specializing in ecological economics mainly. Today I want to talk about decision making, and specifically how do we decide whether an energy project as the pilot site presented today and in the little video at the beginning of the webinar. Is this energy project truly worth doing, not just financially, but in the broader scene? The methodology I'll present gives decision makers, engineers, policymakers, citizens, private developers, a shared language for that question. Yeah, and sustainability matters a lot in this methodology. First of all, we start from a simple but quite powerful idea. The economy does not exist by itself, and it depends on the society, and society depends on the planet. As Amandali rightly said, it is the economy that is a subsidiary of the environment, and it's not the other way around, not the reverse. Amandali was one of the founders of the ecological economist. Very interesting work. So that's the approach we have at Vertigo Lab, and we try to make decisions with donuts, using the donut of Kenneth Ravort, founder of what we call the donut economy. This donut model illustrates this very well. There is a social floor by here. I don't know if you see my pointer, but I would assume that yes. There's a social foundation. We don't want to go below. And there is also an ecological ceiling. We also call planetary boundaries, such as climate change, the water issues too, energy demand, material footprint. That's all planetary boundaries, and to have a sustainable economy, we should stay between those two boundaries. But to know that, we have to assess at some point, to measure if an activity, a project fits into this donut or not. Yeah. When we assess a project, we ask ourselves, does it help us to stay within these boundaries? So to make it concrete, we look at three interconnected dimensions. So economy, society, and the environment. But we go beyond the project itself. We're trying to go and to look at all the value chain of the project, and the concerned territories. Who produces, who benefits from it, and where the impact does occur. This tension between what happens locally and what is imported is key in the assessment, in the holistic assessment. So let me show you how this works in practice. At one of our pilot sites, the one presented at the beginning by Manuel and in the video, the irrigation system pilot site, we have for the investment phase only this kind of benefits from the economy perspective. So an investment of about a bit less than 50,000 euros, mainly spent, like half of it is spent in Spain, and then in other countries in the world. This has an impact, a social economic impact. This generates over 120,000 euros as production worldwide, and a bit less than 3,000 hours of work of people working. We are also able to determine if this work is done by male or female workers, to help understand equalities, inequalities, and so on. So what's the most interesting part is that here we see that 60% of the project value, the economic value, remains within Europe here, the value added. 60% of it stays in Europe. The money doesn't disappear, it just circulates into Europe. So for every €1,000,000 or for every euro, if you prefer, spent for this project, yeah, there is 2.5 euros of economic activity worldwide generated. This is the multiplier effect that often interests local politicians and administrators, and this is quite useful to determine if we better help a sector or another, or to determine where are the economic losses, and that's for the economic value. And then let's now talk about the environment. We're looking at both sides of the same coin, so impacts here, the pressures on from us to the environment, the biodiversity, and the economic service dependencies we have on the biodiversity and on nature globally. So here we can assess what are the pressures we're making on nature, and what's the degree of dependency we have on the biodiversity, thanks to the expenditures we make and the distribution of the value, the added value on the value chain. And this scheme is quite interesting, because here we understand that if we damage what we depend on, we are jeopardizing the viability of our own project. So that's quite interesting to have a look on that. Concerning the impacts, the pressures, we can see that here we have mainly how to say, we just seen that Spain and Europe is generating and keeping most of the value, the economic value in Europe. We talk about 60% of the economic value generated stays in Europe, but we see that the impacts of the impact on the environment are mainly located in China because of the value chain distribution. And so about 69% of the CO2 emissions are made in China. Of course, it is because of their electrical mix, energy mix. And this is exactly the kind of information that should guide decisions on supply chain and sourcing when we are making a project. Here are only 4 indicators, but we can assess maybe 50 different indicators to have the best decisions, to have made the best decisions. It is useful also for developers as well as policymakers for development. And this slide presents the degree of dependence the project has on ecosystem services. We try to also assess the extent to which economic activities within the value chain depends on those services, specific ecosystem services. Here we have some of it, so as well as water regulation, soil retention, and flood control, for example. And the colors here shows the level of dependency of this part of the value chain to that ecosystem services. And here we try to put it in regard to the share of the total added value. So here we can see that because construction is quite highly dependent on flood controls, and 22% of the value chain is generated by this activity in Spain, we have to be sure that Spain can deal with a good flood control, for example, and that Spain is ready for this in order to not jeopardize the construction sector, and then the project activities. It is this represents a forward-looking risk dimension. We're trying to anticipate the risk, having this kind of thinking. We are also looking at the third pillar, which is social impact and societal impacts. So we have already talked about the employment, but beyond those employment figures, we are interested in quality indicators such as local training, skill development, income levels, and regional equity. And we draw a distinction between those who benefit from it, from those impacts, from the project, and those who suffer the consequences, such as, I don't know, noise, nuisances, health effects. A project that creates jobs in one region, but it is in the meanwhile causing nuisances in another, is not considered as the same as a project where benefits and drawbacks are distributed fairly for everyone. And finally, we are looking at the regulatory framework that also plays an important role when designing a project, such as those pilot sites. European and national frameworks, whether the Renewable Energy Directive, the European Union, from the European Union, as well as national energy plans, or even very local planning on energy, local projects planning. That determine how feasible and are the project and what takes priority from our leaders. Our analysis takes this framework into account to ensure that our recommendations can be implemented in line with the practical constraints. And if you are more interested in that topic, we can look at the first webinar available on our HY4RES YouTube channel. My colleague Laure talked a bit more about this, and that's quite interesting. I encourage you to look at this. Putting it all together, our holistic impact framework covers 4 dimensions. So the economic effects, environmental impacts and dependencies, social impact and opportunities, and the political context. Each of it informs a different decision maker. The engineer can take environmental metrics. The policymaker gets a reading of the regulatory alignment. The local authority is interested, probably most likely in getting economic multipliers to know how what are the dynamics, economical dynamics it creates on their territories. And the community, the local community, can get social equity indicators. The goal is not to reduce everything to a single score, not at all. It is to give each stakeholder the relevant information for their decisions. And it is about how, as a community, we make the more sustainable decisions together. And yeah, I just wanted to add that renewable energy transition is very necessary, but how we do it matters a lot. This methodology is our little contribution to making those choices more informed, transparent, and ultimately more sustainable. Thank you very much. I'm open to all the questions you can have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Theo, for that. And nice way to close our session. And maybe one question to you before we invite the panel back, and also to encourage everyone to put your questions in the Q&A or use the chat function, whatever you wish. So this holistic impact assessment that you've described, you mentioned at the end, specific stakeholders and their perhaps interest in one dimension of it. But would I be correct in saying, though, that they might be most interested in one dimension, but they should be interested in all dimensions?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it is also a thing we are doing in at Vertical Lab. We are talking to our sometimes companies, trying to reach them with, I don't know, economical indicators, you know. And while we are talking to them, we are trying to introduce environmental indicators, social indicators, to make their decisions sustainable, as I said, and to have a global picture of it. And that's a bit what this approach can give. We are producing and measuring different aspects of sustainability, and each aspect can interest at the beginning a different stakeholder, but in the end, the best way to make project is to make it together as a community and to take into account the different issues together. What if the politician make decision without taking into account the needs of the local communities or the constraints on the developers and on the economy, on the value chains and so on, and on the environment? So because we are depending on it, it is not that sustainable.
I agree, and I think that's where the value is, and it's an opportunity to open a much broader dialogue. And a word I've been using in recent years is balance.
Yeah,
it's about making balanced decisions that are not economically biased or environmentally biased or socially biased, if that is a thing, but to providing all aspects of the problem, or discussing all aspects, is very good. So thanks, Theo. We'll come back to this as part of our group discussion. So I'd invite our other panelists to come back, turn their cameras on and their microphones, and encourage you all, I don't know if it's a shy audience today, to ask some questions using the Q&A function, and I'll happily post them to our group. So please, there's the Q&A button, click, and I've started just a discussion thread, but you can start your own if you want to add your question separately. So I think we can stop sharing the main screen and just to have everybody on camera. And there are our four lovely panelists. Thank you all for joining now for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll just have a group discussion. I'm not going to start in any specific order. Maybe we've just finished with Theo, so I'll let him have a little break. I might come to Rita first, and then Mariana and Manuel. Rita, I suppose your work currently is decision making that is technical, but from the stakeholders you engage with, is technical the only decision making factor from and having been involved in HY4RES, do you think there is a value in the broader environmental, social dimensions that we can all learn from?
I would say that definitely, and I would understand, why the main concern normally with stakeholders or people or communities starting to build their own infrastructure or renewable infrastructure. The main concern sometimes is economical, or that's like the main, the main decision factor. But I would say that, and of course also technical, in the sense, is this installation safe? Is this installation appropriate for the site? Does it make sense? But more and more, having the environmental impact of the installation it's becoming more and more relevant. Not only for a marketing perspective and trying to show that, but I think everyone is getting more and more concerned. I don't know if concerned is the word, but more aware of the impacts that energy generation and energy consumption has on our environment and in our communities.
Yeah. So your work is helping at least the forecasting improve I suppose the generation performance, the electrical energy performance, but the knock-on benefits are environmentally beneficial and socially beneficial. Maybe it's just not clear or not directly envisaged in the tool. Mariana, for you are now trying to integrate environmental factors into your tool. So do you have all of the data to achieve what you need to achieve? Data is always the challenge that we face with decision making. So do you have, what types of data are important for you, and can it be translated to environmental information quite easily?
Yeah,
It's supposed to help with optimization.
Sorry?
No, just for optimization. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the same energy decision should not be based on the economic factors. Environmental and social dimension help us better understand the overall impact of the decision and support more sustainable solution. And yeah, stakeholders collaboration have been very important, although in the develop our digital solution, because we need to solve the real problem for the end users. So it's very important, the collaboration, their needs, concern, and expectation to the end user, and to mix with the environmental and the social aspect.
Yeah, and Manuel, and thank you, Mariana. And Manuel, during your presentation, you presented kilowatts of energy. You presented kilowatts of energy, and you also presented kilograms of CO2, which I think is really good. That even though your priority is energy, you're recognizing the CO2. But how is this information affecting your operations by understanding the energy demand and performance? Like, how are you changing your decisions in operations? And is it all about energy, but the benefits are also carbon, or are you also recognizing the value of reducing carbon emissions?
Okay, the HY4RES project has halved energy consumption. As for our irrigation community, the use of renewable energy enables us to be more self-sufficient, more important self-sufficient for irrigation community.
And how do you feel that you might share this with other irrigation communities? How do you think that this one project and the findings of HY4RES to allow it to be replicable? do you think it'll all be about the kilowatts of energy, or do you think that the positive environmental story will also benefit? So how do you see it being replicated in the irrigation communities in Spain?
In Spain, irrigation community, the type of hybrid project can be implemented on medium to large scale farms. Conversely, it is becoming increasingly common for our irrigation customers to install solar panels of farm all size, but because the price energy is high and the environmental is more important for the irrigation community on Andalusia and Spain and to customers.
Okay, so there's definitely a capacity and an appetite for growing, expanding, replicating the technology, the solar PV. So then I guess for Rita, the digital tools, the AI story, with that added, what sort of level of improvement with forecasting can the irrigation community benefit, or any hybrid renewable energy project?
I think with the AI and all this digitalization, what brings us is more data, and more data means more informed decisions. So by having this sort of data and understanding how the potential of energy generation is on a side, that brings us into not only managing more efficiently our energy consumption and our energy in general, but for new installations, it allows us to not either under-dimension or over-dimension installations, which both protects the investment costs. So if an installation is over-dimensioned, increases the investment costs, and if the installation is under-dimensioned, that means that reduces the system performance. So data can allow us to have more informed decisions, and better forecasting leads to a better planning, more efficient operation, and improve the use of the renewable energy balance resources that we have.
Yeah, I think the word life cycle, well, from my perspective, and I guess Theo's perspective, it's not just about the operational stage of the life cycle that data and AI can play, and digital tools can play an important role, but also in the planning. If more people embrace that at that early stage of the design and development and planning. Mariana, your presentation presented very good results, very good, strong correlations. And obviously that means you have quite a good, accurate assessment, but that's in a short term. What is in the real world context, what's the next steps for your digital tools? What is the next steps for you to progress this and bring it to stakeholders?
Okay, so the next step is to implement the model in the real world environmental. In the case of the irrigation community, this means integration and API, the energy demand API, that can provide real-time energy demand data. This is important because the recent energy consumption is usually the most important information, as said before. And maybe this is the next step right now in the project, to incorporate the API. And then the others components, like optimization algorithms and others support decision tools in the platform.
That is maybe the technical piece as well, but then have you engaged with stakeholders to ensure that the solution will work for them? I'm curious about your engagement with stakeholders in this process.
Yeah, we need data. So maybe the first step is to incorporate IoT devices and then recording data training and or maybe retraining the current model.
Okay.
A specific data for each stakeholders.
Yeah. So we all value data or data.
Yes. Exactly.
We all need it. Not always easily accessible. Theo, you're helping with this holistic impact assessment. Could I guess what the challenges are with regards to the assessment for the pilots? And I know this is the HY4RES project, but what are the challenges that arise from these types of assessments?
It is a bit what we talked earlier, but the main challenges for this kind of assessment is as said Mariana, is having access to the data, and when we are just planning a project before it occurs in the real world, we don't know exactly what it will look like, and it is sometimes quite hard to have good quality data to make the assessments. But it is, even if it is not very precise data, it is still very interesting to make this holistic impact assessment in order to anticipate what it could be, and to make the right choices, and to choose whether if it is better to buy the, I don't know, solar panels in in this country or in this other country, regarding all the aspects of the sustainability, as well as economical. Of course, sometimes it's cheaper very far from where we are developing the project. For example, solar panels in China are much cheaper than, I don't know, in Germany or in Italy. But still, there is other knock-on effects, and it is very interesting to look at all the benefits and drawbacks of the potential drawbacks of the potential project, in order to be sure that we are not doing a thing for nothing. Okay, we want it to be, okay, it's renewable energy. We want sustainable projects for a sustainable future, to reach a sustainable objective from the United Nations, and as a community. But if we are doing that without taking into account all the parameters we can have, it can be useless. And as I said, I wanted to add that earlier, but we have different breaks in that methodology, and it is not relevant to make a single big score. Okay, this is, I don't know, 90% sustainable, this is 25% sustainable, because it doesn't say anything on the reality of the project, if it is better in terms of environment, economic, social, I don't know. But we are, most of the time, we are trying to build a kind of multi-criteria analysis next to it, in order to be sure that we are making the best decisions regarding the very own issues, and that is also a challenge. And of course, to make different stakeholders to agree on that distribution of the relevance of challenges, different issues and challenges.
Yes, I realized one thing, that the five of us, as the panelists and myself as moderator, we're all engineers, but it's very good that we are having this broader discussion on decision making not being just technical. There is this important aspect to renewable energy projects, and our discipline embracing this wider kind of balanced perspective. We are coming close to an end, so I suppose want to ask you all the same question very briefly. We are now coming to the last 6 months of the HY4RES project, and what do you think you have taken away in terms of decision making that will benefit you going forward? So I'm just very curious, what have you learned from HY4RES around decision making? So Manuel, may I ask you first that question? So what being part of HY4RES, what have you learned about decision making in projects like this?
This project HY4RES, irrigation community, and me running to the importance of hybrid renewable energy, or us agriculture in general, and more important in agricultural of community, because the energy is the more cost of irrigation community and the customers, because the energy renewable is more important for us.
Yeah, I agree. And we don't realize that food on our shelves in our shops are all linked to the energy of the irrigation at the very beginning as well. Mariana, what about for you for decision making in the work that you've been doing?
For me, I learning a lot because my thesis around in the project, and I think in the decision making HY4RES show us that technical or technique it's important, but the making decisions required more than models, predictions, forecasting, or data. It's required combining expertise, knowing, and sustainable criteria. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Mariana. Absolutely, it is that broader perspective. Rita, to you.
Yeah, my answer was quite similar to Mariana. So, like, especially coming from a technical background, it's easy to just focus on what is the most efficient system for X whatever side. So taking a step back and understanding how different stakeholders and how any person or element even involved into a project has a different perspective, and how they all interconnect at the end of the day, and how I guess taking a bit of a step back and seeing the whole system in a little bit more perspective, let's say.
That's perfect, Rita. And Theo, last word to you.
Yeah, I would say that I've learned a lot about decision making in this project, because as the leader of the work package dealing with holistic assessment, I can see that the work of my colleagues in the HY4RES project in other work packages, like the work of Mariana, of Rita, and other colleagues on the very technical concerns, the design, the production prediction, the consumption prediction, and so on, are super relevant, and it is very complementary to the analysis we are doing, having this step back and having the holistic impact assessment. I would say that this is not only about renewable energy. All this way of this decision-making concern is not about only renewable energy. We can apply that to all aspects of the project, any kind of project we will have, and that is quite interesting, because we are here developing something very interesting and for a more sustainable Europe, and I guess I hope for a more sustainable world. But this could be applied to every aspect of the life, for the European Union as well as for every citizen and companies and local authorities and so on.
Absolutely, thanks, Theo. And that kind of brings us nicely to the close. So I'll just ask Amandine to put up the final slide, and we'll bring this to a close. So I think you've heard the kind of the key messages from our panelists. I've given them those words. So thank you very much to our 4 speakers for contributing to today, for you all for participating in this session, which is part of an event, part of the Sustainable Energy Days, which is linked to the European Sustainable Energy Week. I didn't mention that in the beginning, so this is part of it. So there is our QR codes for our newsletter and LinkedIn as well, and you can find us on HY4RES.eu. And please, I suppose, you're more than welcome to follow us, participate in our future events. And the future event that I want to highlight before we close is our next webinar in 2 weeks from now, the 30th of June, our final session, going beyond today's session on decision making, entitled Turning Research into Practice. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. This session has been recorded and we'll be sharing it openly. And thank you to, I suppose, our funders for their support in making this project a reality. So have a good morning. Thank you very much again, everyone, and bye.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much.
Like